And now we ask the important question, who will the post-COVID traveler be? And there's no one better to give a view on the endemic traveler than Hermione Joye, Sector Lead, Travel and Vertical Search APAC, Google. Hermione, please join me on stage. I know we all have to.
I'm joining the Emmys or something.
Well, we all have to relearn how to be on stage again physically with each other. So thank you for joining us. Are you an example of the endemic traveler? Because you've just come back from a family vacation in Italy, and you look absolutely refreshed.
Thank you. You did see me right before I left, so that's not a surprise. But without a doubt, I am more passionate and more excited about travel than I have ever been. And I think that there is, I've already planned new trips. I planned trips whilst I was in Italy. And I noticed once I got back to Singapore, just a hive of conversation in my community of people booking multiple trips.
Right. So even though you had to do quarantine at home, you were off. So imagine if you didn't have to do quarantine. So what can you tell us about the customer behavior now based on the most recent data, which I know that you've been studying over the last couple of days?
Yeah, so we just released a study with Kantar looking at consumer behaviour across APAC and how it had changed. And what we found was that, number one, APAC is still a very nuanced market. We have multiple sub-regions, really. But what strings the APAC traveller together today is digital, first and foremost. And the rapid acceleration of digital because of COVID is an advantage for us in the travel industry, I believe. What we're seeing is that over 2.5 billion people are now, half the world's internet population are based here. What does that mean in terms of things to know about the traveller? Well, there's a huge focus, which is not a surprise, on leisure travel, just like myself of what I've done. People have been starved from these experiences, and quite frankly, businesses aren't funding corporate travel. But people are prioritising the leisure travel because they have been in their lockdowns. And we're seeing this phenomenon of the revenge traveller, and I'd probably see myself as that. People are out there booking multiple trips whilst they can in fear of going back into lockdown and having something shut down. So they're really going hot. And this means that they're also spending more. So interestingly, what we're seeing is that people are spending much more on their trips, their leisure trips in the past, and have a higher preference for luxury travel. In fact, our consumer research said over 80% of consumers were interested in luxury travel. In markets like India and Indonesia, this held. There's a strong preference to luxury travel. And in markets like Australia and Japan, it was around 60%. Okay. Within this, obviously, leisure travel is very different from business. And what we've seen is that the average nightly stay of travel has extended dramatically since 2019. So in 2019, the average nightly stay was around 3.5 days. And now, majority of, I think it was over 85% of our respondents said their leisure travel experience would be 5 days. But more importantly, 1 in 4 said that they would be 2 weeks plus. And that's someone like me.
All right.
Within this, they're hyper-focused on what type of travel they're doing. So COVID's brought about complexity. It takes around almost 20% longer to book a trip, and I've just done that. Once you've done your PRC tests, you've done all your notarizations of vaccines and things like that. And this means that people are hyper-focused and don't want to move around. So previously, they wanted to, they'd go through Southeast Asia and they would be running around to multiple countries. What we're seeing is a strong preference, particularly out of Australia and very heavily out of Japan, for very focused travel, 1 to 2 countries in that. And why this is important is twofold for everyone in this room. The first thing that's important is it means that you need to be engaged with your user across the entire journey. The journey's complex and you need to be there at every point. You can't wait to the end and hope to capture that journey.
Right.
And secondly, for our DMOs, our tourism bodies and people who are really pushing destinations, you're not going to get the same on-flow from the regional travel as you used to. So you need to be really pointed and powerful and get your message out there, because once they've made the decision, and I'd use myself as an example, I got to Italy, I went to 2 destinations.
Right. You know, I'm trying to digest all the data that you've just shared, which is incredible and insightful. And I think I am probably an example, because I've just booked a month-long trip to US and Europe, and I'm paying an astronomical price, astronomical.
I hear you.
and really just going to 2 places for a month. So, you know, I'm also in that bucket, which along with our customers. So the other thing that you mentioned, I think before you went off to Italy, you mentioned that the swings in demand are very sudden in Asia, right? So as soon as there's a news, it spikes up very quickly. And so marketers really have to be on their toes to kind of catch all these sudden spikes.
It's correct. So 2 things just to know on your point about, you know, spending more. We've seen that in our clicks as well. So high demand for accommodation, over $300. Our clicks have really increased, particularly in Japan, over 125%. And markets like India and Indonesia, around 2x versus 2019. So people are looking for that leisure experience. What we're seeing in terms of to answer your next question, is that the recovery in APAC is very fast. So people need to be across the trends and they need to be nimble. Things are changing overnight. In fact, they're changing within a day. And we're seeing that around the world. And so therefore demand is changing. So what we've noticed is that we have a look at Japan, and we had a look at India, and then we had a look at Asia, taking all very different markets to see how consumers pay for it. And the one common trend in APAC is recovery is a lot faster. So what we found versus, say, the US, where recovery from queries going straight down because you're in a lockdown, it would take around 4 months to recover. In Asia, we're seeing it's taking around a month. And in markets like Australia, it can take just a week because people want to get out there.
Okay, so we will catch up very quickly when the doors open. Now, your latest study with Kanta also shows a real swing towards travel apps during the pandemic, and we have a chart here that shows this. So do you see similar shifts elsewhere in the Google world, or is this sort of very special to APAC, the swing to super apps or travel apps?
It's a good question. And I think you need to break it down. So we have half the world's internet population here, and many of their experience, most people's experiences, has been mobile first interaction with the internet. And so this is why the rise of super apps has happened. They're digitally dependent and they're digitally comfortable. If I have a think about how that flows on, I think you see similar trends in Africa and LATAM, where you have the rising fast population and the younger populations. If I have a look and reflect of what's happening on the US and EMEA, there is a lot of regulation. And it's not as simple to become a super app, and nor is the user expecting it or demanding it. So if you look at say Amazon, for example, they have Amazon Shopping, and then they have Prime, but they're all separate apps. Same with Uber. You have the Uber travel app, and then they'll have the Uber food app. So I think it's a trend that is here, and it will stay. I don't think it will flow so rapidly into the other regions, like the more mature regions like the US or EMEA.
Okay. So what does this rising power of travel apps mean for small businesses who cannot afford to have that all-in-one app, right? Because we can only have so many apps in our phone.
Yeah. And quite frankly, people don't want a ton of apps, right? So I think that it's really important, and I think what our app research showed is that once they've chosen a travel brand, then they actually prefer to engage with you, but you need to get them to choose you first. And so for small businesses, the recovery is on its way. And here in APAC, we're lucky in the sense that most of the users of the internet are based here. So people are going to be, there's a huge opportunity. So for a small business, what I would recommend is just investing heavily in your digital experience. Tech first. Make sure that you have a digital experience end to end before you even consider marketing. And really invest on your mobile experience and discovery. So make sure that you have, your local business set up so that people can find you, that you have video content, that you have your photos, that you're immersive.
Yeah. Okay, so does this move towards travel apps too? Like, does this mean that the battle is more in the advantage of generalists, who have frequency and scale versus the travel specialists, which may not have that same level of frequency of use?
And when you say that, are you talking specific to like the travel vertical, or are you saying like a
travel vertical?
Travel vertical.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for both, and I know that's a very neutral answer, but just hear me out for a second.
Very quickly.
Okay. People want the generalist experience, but once they've found what they want the specialization. Every consumer wants a personalized journey, and we've seen some of that in the startup. So I think there's a place for both.
Okay.
As long as, if you're a smaller guy, know your customer. Your customer data is incredibly important. Know your trends, and then make sure you're discoverable.
All right. Or you do partnerships with the right people who can just funnel that demand down to you. So let me quote, and I think Frederick at the first session spoke about it a little bit, but Eric Ngokfar of Klook, when he was commenting on his user acquisition strategy during COVID, said that the local strategy also plays to our strength. Content and social are more relevant than search in domestic. Pre-COVID, a lot was driven by search. This shift in user acquisition strategy played to our advantage. So how has this shift towards local impacted your search business in APAC?
Well, it's done just that. It's made our search business hyper domestic. Previously we had a lot of queries for international flow, intra-APAC flow, but now our query demand is phenomenal for domestic. So Australia, as an example, is up, I think, around 200% in 2020 versus 2019. And so that's when that was for domestic demand. So our business has become domestic, but what we're seeing just in recent months, as opening has happened, that international is flowing through. And we saw that with the huge spikes in queries that we saw with the VLT lanes opening in Singapore. I mean, we had something around 40% year-on-year growth for queries worldwide out of Singapore.
Okay.
And all that just I know that I'm from Google, so just to be clear, all the data I'm sharing is available on our tool, which is Destination Insights, and it's a free tool, and that's part of the process of making sure that everyone does have an equal playing field and can get access to data.
So searchers are definitely going to go cross-border again as the world opens up. Okay, so rapid fire. Okay, so the first thing
very good at that.
small travel businesses must do tomorrow to win the endemic traveler. Like, go back to their office. What must they do?
Understand their first-party data, understand the customer desire, and then invest in digital.
Right. So if
tech before media.
Okay, so invest in tech.
Digital tech before digital media. Okay. Because it's not going to work otherwise.
All right. What was the best moment that you had in Italy?
I think drinking around 3 or 4 Aperol spritzes by the pool, watching my kids play in the water, and being in the sunshine, digital free.
All right. So after a tough 2 years, I think very few companies have marketing budgets left, right? What should they do?
Yeah, it's tough, and I feel it, but I feel energy now. If I was a marketing team now, I would again focus on making sure as a business that you have your digital tech done, that your mobile experience is brilliant in whatever form. That's the most important thing. And then I would test and learn. It's very cheap to test and learn, and you can get results quickly on digital, and that's where the customer is. So no longer do you need to invest in TV and do big creative. Go out, test, see what works. Don't be afraid of failure, and then learn for it and apply it quickly. It's just about being nimble, really nimble in the way you talk to your consumers and the way you can change your approach, because things are constantly changing.
All right, can I have a one-word answer to this question?
Unlikely.
One-word answer. What have you learned about your kids during this period?
Gosh. My daughter is a mini me.
Okay. All right.
And it's a disaster.
All right. Thank you so much, Hermione, for sharing those insights with us and the positive news. Thank you.